Shalom, Israel. I would like to give all reverence, due benevolence, worship, honor, praise, and glory unto the Most High God, whose name is Yahawah, and his only begotten Son, whose name is Yahawashi. This is an exhortation to you Israelites to wake up to your true identity according to the scriptures, according to the Holy Bible. If your father considers himself to be so-called black, Hispanic, or Native American, then you are the true Israelites according to the Most High God. It may sound incredible, but that is the truth. You have been lied to your entire life. You've been told that you're nothing but some niggas, or even other derogatory terms for Hispanics and Native Americans. But that is not the case. You descend from King David. You descend from King Solomon, from all the great men and women that we read about in the scriptures. That is the stock that you are of. And I find a great parallel between the concealment of our identity that the heathen nations have taken up to strip us of our heritage and our culture, as they've taken us into captivity and subjugated us to be the bottom of the barrel of the societies that we live in. I think a great connection can be made unto Jon Snow, the character Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. And like I went over in the first video that I did, I call this the true prince who was promised. You Israelites are the true prince who was promised. And when you watch Game of Thrones, I'll just briefly go over it again. Jon Snow lived with Ned Stark and his family in the north. And the whole time, he was the rightful king because he was the son of Rhaegar Targaryen and Lyanna Stark. And the Targaryens were in power for centuries, or for however long it was, quite a long time. And they were usurped, and Jon Snow was born out of wedlock, but he was hidden and given unto his mother's sister and unto their family to raise up. And the whole time, he was brought up in that family, but he was never truly recognized for who he was. And then ultimately he was sent onto the wall, where he did what? He took up the black. He took up the black, and he protected the fictional country of Westeros from the wildlings who lived beyond the wall. It was his job to watch on the wall. Come on. If you have read the scriptures and you've run through it even one time, and you've put a decent amount of it to memory, you'll know that all these things just speak about our people. Again, I can't say it definitively 100%, like I was in the writer's room and I saw how they conceived the script and what they gained their inspiration from, but it's clear as day. He took up the black. That's a sign of, you could say it's like a sign of shame, because when you take up the black, it's like the job or the role that nobody wanted to do in the country. So all the men who were on the wall were nothing but vagabonds. They were thieves, robbers. They were murderers. They were people who should have been either put to death or however they did it. It's been a while since I've seen the show. Imprisoned, whatever. But instead they were sent onto the wall because it was like, hey, someone needs to protect us from these wildlings who are dealing with the White Walkers and make sure that the country stays safe. Could be likened unto our captivity and taking up the black. That's what our people have done. Yes, the word black traces back generations, but our people are Israelites, and we're supposed to refer to each other and to other nations and to other peoples by their nationality, not by color, not by these foolish labels that we place on other people. Like, there's no one who's white. Like, you take up a piece of printer paper and you put it next to someone's face. I mean, unless you're that one anomaly that just hasn't seen the sun, you're not white like a piece of printer paper. And that's just a lighthearted joke. Same thing with someone who's black. Yes, there are people who are extremely dark in certain parts of Africa, like Kenya. But you take like a piece of, like you take a book bag or a jacket that's just jet black and you put it next to someone's face. People aren't black. You're just extremely, extremely, extremely dark brown or you're extremely, extremely, extremely pale. The same thing can be said for people who are from like Ireland or Scotland. I know those people are like very pale, but those people are not white like paper. So he took up the black. It's a sign of shame. That's what our people have been told. You're nothing but niggas, like I said. And that word nigger just means black, quite literally, when you trace the etymology. So ultimately, Jon Snow did learn that he was the true prince who was promised. But the show didn't end with the ending that we all wanted to see, with him solely sitting on the throne. And the rest was history. If you watched it, or if you haven't watched it, you should watch it. It's a pretty good show. If you want to just, like I said in the other video, just unwind and not be over righteous and just dealing with the scriptures and the scriptures only. It's a good show to watch. But you are that prince who was promised, and there are precepts in the scriptures that prove that. So getting straight to the point, in Hosea chapter 1, and I'll just get the kicker. This is verse number 10. It says, Yet the number of the children of Israel shall be as the sand of the sea, which cannot be measured nor numbered. And it shall come to pass that in the place where it was said unto them, Ye are not my people, there it shall be said unto them, Ye are the sons of the living God. Then shall the children of Judah and the children of Israel be gathered together and appoint themselves one head, and they shall come up out of the land, for great shall be the day of Jezreel. So what the prophet Hosea is prophesying here is that the children of Israel would be in a state of subjugation prior to their deliverance. When it says in verse 11 that they shall be gathered together and appoint over themselves one head, that can be precepted with what's going to happen once the new covenant is instituted. That's speaking about the vengeful advent, the coming of Christ, of Yahawah Bahasham, who you may know as Jesus Christ. The word Christ just means anointed, so you can refer to him as that. Hamashiach means the Messiah, so Messiah, anointed. They're like synonyms, but his true name in the Hebrew is Yahawashi. So when Yahawashi comes back, he's going to save our people. It's not the people who are in Israel today. Those are imposters. They stole your identity. They're taking up your way of life, your culture, and pretending to be you. And yes, our people are in all nations, so some of those imposters are imposters who don't know that they're imposters being imposters. But either way, they're among imposters. And by and large, our people are the blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans found in the Western world. And our people are also scattered all throughout the four corners of the earth. So our people are in China, Japan, Russia, India, in the Arabian Peninsula, North Africa, Central Africa. A huge concentration is in the west coast of Africa. That's where our people were brought from during the transatlantic slave trade. And you can find huge populations of our people in France, in Great Britain, in Brazil. But that's what that means. That we will appoint to ourselves one head. That's Hamashiach Yahawashi. And they shall come up out of the land. Why? Because that's what it means to be saved. To be saved doesn't mean to be saved doesn't mean that you just read the scriptures and then you repent one time and then automatically you're just absolved from everything. No, you have to keep the commandments. You have to build your faith. You have to make this the central focus of your life. And then you have to pray incessantly that you're counted worthy to escape the evils that are coming upon the earth, because it is a meritocratic system. A meritocracy is just a system by which people are rewarded for the things that they do. So if you do good, you'll be rewarded. If you do extremely good, you'll be rewarded accordingly. Commensurate to what it is that you do. And the same thing for if you are wicked, if you sin, transgress. But this is letting our people know that we would be in a state of captivity in the last days. So again, that's not talking about the people who are in Israel, because they are the head. That's what it tells us in Deuteronomy. And I wanted to start in Hosea just because it lays out the beginning and the end of our toil. But Deuteronomy 28 is the chapter that you need to stay in to remember your heritage, your culture, your identity. It lays out the curses that our people would be under in this time. And it tells us exactly what would befall us so that we could read the chapter. We could go to verse number 30, verse number 40, 50, so on and so forth. And we could say, wow, all these verses are talking about our people. I'll just get one of them. And this is one that if you read this verse and you don't just say, man, that's talking about us, that's talking about our people, we're the Israelites, then, you must be living under a rock. I'm going to get Deuteronomy chapter 28. And I'm going to start at verse 53, but verses 54 through 56, or matter of fact, 54 through 57 are the kicker, but 53 just introduces it. This is Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 53. And thou shalt eat the fruit of thine own body, the flesh of thy sons, and of thy daughters, which the Lord thy God hath given thee in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee. Verse number 54, so that the man that is tender among you and very delicate, his eye shall be evil toward his brother, and toward the wife of his bosom, and toward the remnant of his children, which he shall leave. Before I even go any further, does that not describe our people to a T? Just breaking it down. His eye shall be evil toward his brother. What is that? Gang violence. That's strife in the inner cities. Gun violence. Murders. Our people are against one another for silly reasons, because of affiliations, because of ties, your crew or your gang. Reading on. And toward the wife of his bosom. What is that talking about? Our people don't get married at an extremely high rate compared to these other nations. We pump and dump. There's a bunch of childless, fatherless children that is plaguing our community. That's been plaguing our community since the 70s. It's always been prevalent. Always, but that really started becoming like a epidemic type of problem in the 70s, 60s, 70s, really. But in the 70s, that's when it's there was enough material to start making documentaries about just how atrocious it was. And yes, there were things that were put in place by the government here in the United States. And it also happened in other countries too. But speaking specifically about the United States from a factual standpoint, like men no longer being allowed to live in housing projects. So that created antipathy between the man and the woman, because now the woman had to choose between getting a check from the government and being able to keep a roof over her and her children's head, as opposed to keeping her head in the household. So the man's eye became evil toward the wife of his bosom, because money was no longer available, even though our people were always impoverished. But there were times where the communities that we were in were more functional. Yes, we were in a state of servitude, but it wasn't like the way it is today, the way it was in the 80s and the 90s, when it was just oh my goodness, what's going on with these people? Reading on, it says, and toward the remnant of his children which he shall leave. Again, that's single parent households. I can't count how many people who looked just like me growing up didn't know their fathers, or whatever the case was. Leaving your children, meaning what? You don't acknowledge your children. You don't raise them. Yeah, I got 4 kids by 3 different baby mothers. And the mothers be talking the same way. They're like, yeah, my baby father. Your baby father? That really gets under my skin when I hear that. My baby father. What is that? Reading on. It says, In verse 55, so that he will not give to any of them of the flesh of his children whom he shall eat, because he hath nothing left him in the siege and in the straitness wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in all thy gates. That's talking about, that prophesied really 70 AD, but that's also talking about the times when our people were taken into captivity. Yes, there were times where our people would be forced to choose between starving to death and eating their children, which you can also read about in the book of 2 Kings. And verse number 56, that's just equally as powerful as 54. It says, the tender and delicate woman among you, which would not adventure to set the sole of her foot upon the ground for delicateness and tenderness, her eye shall be evil toward the husband of her bosom, and toward her son, and toward her daughter. Reading on, verse 57, and toward her young one that cometh out from between her feet, and toward her children which she shall bear, for she shall eat them for want of all things secretly, in the siege and straitness, wherewith thine enemies shall distress thee in thy gates. So the Lord made our plagues and our sicknesses wonderful because we wouldn't keep his commandments. So we're supposed to read these curses and we're supposed to say, wow, this is our people. So what are we supposed to do from there? Start keeping the commandments and keep them diligently. Because that tender and delicate woman is talking about your sister who lives right next door to you. Or that woman who you think is gorgeous, who you're trying to get with. Or it's even talking about that elderly widow who, lives in the apartment down the hall from you, and you know that she doesn't have her husband with her anymore. That's what it's talking about. And that evilness toward the children that come from between her feet, that's really prophesying abortion. How many of our women love to just say, oh, if I have a child, I'm just going to abort it. I'm going to kill it. That's not, if you live a promiscuous life and you just keep getting pregnant just so that you can abort the child because you don't want to take up that responsibility, you have to ask yourself, should I no longer just be engaging in unprotected sex, getting pregnant, so that I just do away with my children? But again, these are the prophecies that our people are supposed to identify with. But there's a silver lining to this, because we were put in this state of captivity and degradation to teach us a lesson because we transgressed. But now that we're in the situation, we're supposed to say, okay, this is our situation. What can we do about it? The simple answer is turn again unto the Most High. It tells us that in the book of Amos. I believe it's in Amos chapter 4 or 5, roughly paraphrasing. The Lord says, thus saith the Lord unto the children of Israel, seek ye me, and ye shall live. So when you seek the Lord, what does that mean? You start doing what he says. And in turn, you seek his face so that he can reveal things unto you by his Holy Spirit. That he can direct your paths, direct your steps. That he can increase you in knowledge, wisdom, understanding, in discipline, in righteousness, in piety, and greatly in faith. So that you can believe in him and in the words that he said from all these times, all these years, all these centuries, millennia ago. And I'll end off in the book of Micah, because this is a reward that will come to our people, those of whom take the commandments with the utmost severity and try to do what it is that's right in the eyes of the Lord. This is the book of Micah, chapter 4 and verse number 8. I'm going to read from 8 through 10. It says, and thou, O tower of the flock, the stronghold of the daughter of Zion, unto thee shall it come, even the first dominion. The kingdom shall come to the daughter of Jerusalem. So the Lord is telling us simple and plain. Right now, you're in a state of captivity in the United States, in the European Union, in the nations of the European Union, all throughout Asia, all throughout the world. But if we return unto the Father, that first dominion is going to come to us. And that's speaking about the dominion that Adam had, because that was the first dominion. And because he ate of the fruit of the tree of knowledge and engaged in manners of wickedness, idolatry being one of them, he was cast down from heaven unto the earth, from a state of exaltation where everything, even the animals, everything obeyed him, was in fear of him. So now he had to work the ground from the sweat of his brow. So that's the first dominion that's going to come to us again. Immortality in the kingdom. Everything will be under our feet. We will be kings and priests, and we will walk after the Lord and do everything that he says. Yahawah Mashiach. That's that first dominion. And the kingdom will come we're likened unto the daughter of Jerusalem because we came forth from her. Jerusalem is like that womb, and we were born in her when our people multiplied and were fruitful in the land. Verse 9, it says, Now why dost thy cry out aloud? Is there no king in thee? Is thy counselor perished? For pangs have taken thee as a woman in travail. So that travail is again talking about this state of subjugation that we're in. So verse 10, it says, Be in pain and labor to bring forth, O daughter of Zion, like a woman in travail. For now shalt thou go forth out of the city, and thou shalt dwell in the field, and thou shalt even go to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. So that's the promise to the prince, which is Israel. If you don't know, if you're saying, yeah, I'm an Israelite, and you don't even know what the word Israel means, Israel means he is the prince of the power, or in the Hebrew, he prince power. Yah Shah Allah. He prince power. He is the prince of the power. So that's what that's talking about here. And the Lord just charted the course of that we would take in history, that we would go forth out of the city, that's Jerusalem, and we would dwell in the field. That's when our people were scattered and dispersed into Africa. I mean, that's simple and plain. And thou shalt even go to Babylon. So once we settled in these parts of West Africa, that's when our captors came, according to Deuteronomy 28, slightly above the 53rd verse, slightly above the verses that I got. It says, A nation of fierce countenance shall come upon thee and overtake thee, which shall not pity our people, just roughly paraphrasing. And we shall go even to Babylon. So that's slavery on ships, which it tells us in Deuteronomy 28 and 68. One of the, I don't like to necessarily rank, but one of the biggest telltale signs that link our people to our God, that we would go into slavery on ships. And when you do the history, when you learn, when you read, you'll see that this happened to our people and our people only. Not literally exclusively, like there wasn't a single other person who went into slavery on a ship. But when you look at the nations of the world and you read Deuteronomy 28 and 68, that's talking about our people. But then here's the promise. It says, And thou shalt even go to Babylon. There shalt thou be delivered. There the Lord shall redeem thee from the hand of thine enemies. Because in Deuteronomy 28 and 68, it says, And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships, by the way whereof I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again. Speaking of Jerusalem, of the Holy Land. And the Lord told us that no man would redeem us in this land. But the man who's going to redeem us is Yahawah Mashiach. We are that true prince who was promised. And the promise is that the Lord will not forget his people as if we were likened unto a suckling child. And once we remember ourselves in the land of our captivities, which it tells us in the book of Baruch chapter 2, once we remember ourselves, we would then have to return and keep the customs and the laws and the statutes that we're bound unto by the covenant that we made with the Lord. And the reward for that is getting delivered and getting the reward of a true prince, which is a kingdom, mansions, what your heart could desire in righteousness, all that your heart could desire in righteousness. So it's extremely important that we understand our identity and our heritage according to the scriptures. You're not black, you're not Hispanic, you're not Native American, you are Israelites. You are of the tribe of Reuben, of Simeon, Levi, Issachar. You are the tribe of Judah, if I didn't say that. Gad, Asher, Naphtali, Dan, Zebulon, Asher, Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin. This is who you are according to the scriptures. Read Genesis 49. You'll see the prophecies that were given unto our people, again, that would link them up. That we'd be able to look back unto and say, wow, this is happening in our nations that we live in our communities. This is talking about our people. So with that, I say Shalom, Israel. Learn about your identity, bask in your identity. It will give you a sense of identity and a sense of confidence and humility and a sense of joy in who you are and who you truly are. With that, I say Shalom, Israel. Shalom.